Imagine waking up every single day knowing that the room isn't empty, knowing that the silence isn't really quiet. For most of us, the line between the physical and the spiritual realm is a solid concrete wall. We treat the afterlife as a comfortable question mark, something safely filed under the unknown. But for a rare few, that wall doesn't exist. They grew up not just believing in the spirits, but living inside a reality teeming with them. These aren't fleeting moments or late-night jitters triggered by a creaking floorboard. These are constant, terrifying visions, full-fledged, daily encounters with entities, shadows, and sometimes things with eyes that follow you from the corner of the ceiling. What happens when your childhood playground is also a crossroads for the dead? We're diving deep into the terrifying, lifelong reality of being born with the sight. The world these individuals describe is structured, often bureaucratic, and far more terrifyingly real than any fictional horror movie. We are going to examine accounts that claim to reveal the true hierarchy of the spirit world, the watchers, the hitchhikers, and the things that refuse to leave. And while the rest of the world prepares for a single night of manufactured scares on Halloween, for these individuals, the veil is always thin, always vibrating. They don't need a holiday to know the dead are walking. We're mapping out the claimed structure of the invisible world based on powerful first-hand accounts. But before we venture further into the darkness, I need to know, have you ever had an encounter you simply couldn't explain? Drop your theory in the comments right now. I want to know if you felt the presence of the unknown. And if you want to understand the terrifying rules of the realm they inhabit, hit that subscribe button right now. Forget the hidden temples, forget the ancient astronaut theories, and forget the mysteries solved by logic alone. Because what we are talking about today defies logic, it defies science, and for some, it is the terrifying, inescapable reality of their entire life. Imagine waking up every single day, not just seeing the physical world, but seeing the static, the noise, the other traffic moving through the same space as you. This isn't a temporary haunting. This is not something you catch out of the corner of your eye. This is the condition known by its experiencers as the sight, and it means the veil between our world and whatever lies next is not just thin. For them, it simply doesn't exist. We are diving deep into the lifelong accounts of individuals who claim to have been born fully wired to the spirit world, experiencing daily interactions with the unknown since they were toddlers. And trust me, the structure of the spirit world they describe is far more complex and terrifying than any Hollywood horror movie. Think of it this way. For most of us, reality is a beautifully rendered 4K image, but for those born with the sight, they are living in a dual-layer reality. They see the 4K image plus a persistent, ghostly layer of static and residual energy overlaid on top. It's like having a sensory input that everyone else is missing. Science, of course, has a name for everything that deviates from the norm, and in the Western world, these claims are often met with skepticism, or worse, clinical labels. But historically, this ability was revered. In ancient cultures, from shamanism in Siberia to certain indigenous traditions across the Americas, the person who could see the spirits was the bridge, the one who understood the whole operating system, not just the physical interface. But what happens when that bridge is a terrified 7-year-old? The accounts are consistent. The earliest memories are not of toys or family picnics, but of intense visual and energetic noise. One woman described her earliest memory as seeing a man made of black smoke standing over her crib, not necessarily menacing, but simply present. When you're a child, you don't have the context to label something as a ghost. It's just another person, albeit one who is translucent, silent, or perhaps smells like ozone and old dust. The developmental challenge is staggering. How do you learn to differentiate between a physical threat and a purely energetic one? It's like trying to teach a baby the difference between a real chair they can sit on and a holographic projection of a chair that will do nothing but pass through them. The constant high-level stimulation can be overwhelming, leading many to struggle with anxiety and sensory overload, because the spirit world, according to these accounts, is never truly quiet. And this brings us to the famous seasonal spikes like Halloween, or as the ancients knew it, Samhain. Historically, Samhain marked the harvest and the transition into winter, but more importantly, it was believed to be the time when the boundary between worlds was thinnest. But why? If we look at the claims through the lens of physics, even speculative physics, the concept is fascinating. Imagine our physical world operates on a specific frequency, like an FM radio station. The spirit world perhaps operates on a slightly higher or lower frequency. Most of us are locked onto FM 98.6. During Samhain, or around locations with intense residual energy, the energetic frequency of the planet itself might slightly drop or spike, causing the channels to momentarily bleed into each other. For the person with the sight, they are already tuned into both channels, but now the static from the other side gets amplified into a full, screaming broadcast. It's not just about seeing visual apparitions either. What these individuals often describe is the ability to perceive emotional residue. You might walk into an old house and feel a slight chill. They walk in and feel the crushing despair of someone who died there 100 years ago, perfectly preserved like an energetic echo chamber. Now you might think the most terrifying aspect is seeing a horrifying skeletal figure, but there's a deeper, more chilling reality to the sight. And there's one more detail you can't imagine. The most profound burden, according to those who live with this ability, isn't the jump scares. It's the sheer relentless boredom of the dead. Think about it. Many spirits described in these lifelong encounters aren't malevolent demons or tortured souls. They are often just confused, repetitive, and stuck. They perform the same actions, walk the same paths, and repeat the same emotional loops because they don't realize they've moved on, or perhaps they're trapped by their own residual energy. It's like being forced to watch the same 5 minutes of a badly produced silent film, 24 hours a day, year after year. The terrifying part is the realization that the afterlife, for many, might just be endless, boring repetition. If you are already finding your perception of reality shifting, and you're starting to wonder what else you might be missing right now, take a second to hit that like button. It tells us that these deep dives into the unknown are exactly what you want to see. And make sure you subscribe, because we are about to explore the terrifying structure of the spiritual realm, according to those who claim to have mapped it since birth. We've talked about the sight, but what about the sound? The energetic noise these individuals must filter out is often described as a constant ringing or a low, persistent hum, a phenomenon that has some researchers drawing parallels between these subjective experiences and conditions like chronic tinnitus. But unlike tinnitus, the sound, according to these accounts, often carries meaning. It's a language of vibration. Imagine trying to sleep while hearing 200 invisible conversations happening in different languages, all at once, inside your bedroom. That's the level of sensory input some people claim to manage every single night. The only way to cope, often developed subconsciously during childhood, is to build a massive internal filter, a psychological dam designed to block out the energetic noise. But that filter is constantly under stress, especially when they encounter what they call high-density energy forms. These are the spirits that aren't just residual echoes. They are conscious, aware, and capable of interaction. These interactions often require immense mental energy, leading to what they describe as spiritual burnout. It's not just a conversation, it's a psychic tug-of-war, where the spirit is attempting to use the person with the sight as a temporary anchor back into the physical world. The terrifying element here is the potential for possession, not in the exaggerated Hollywood sense, but as a subtle, gradual, energetic takeover. Imagine suddenly having thoughts that aren't yours, or intense, unfamiliar emotions that seem to belong to a different time period. It's a constant battle for mental real estate. The question then becomes, if they see the dead, can the dead see them back? According to most accounts, yes. And this is where the childhood fear truly escalates. When a spirit realizes a living person can actually perceive them, the attention can become focused and intense. It's like accidentally making eye contact with a predator in the wilderness. You suddenly become the center of their universe. This is why many people with the sight learn early on to mask their ability, training themselves to look through the spirits, maintaining a blank facade to avoid unwanted attention. This learned behavior often manifests as extreme shyness or social awkwardness in childhood, because they are constantly navigating two realities simultaneously, trying to ensure that the living people around them don't notice their interaction with the invisible crowd. Forget ghost hunters who spend one night in a spooky mansion and claim they caught a faint EVP. Imagine never getting to turn the lights off. Imagine being born into a reality where the veil between the physical world and whatever else is out there simply doesn't exist. This isn't a story about a quick scare. This is about a lifetime sentence to the edge of reality. We often talk about the paranormal as an event, a flash of light, a cold spot. But for those who claim to be born with the sight, the invisible world isn't an event. It's the backdrop. It's like living with a television permanently tuned to two channels at once. One is your regular life, your breakfast, your job. The other is a constant shifting parade of shadows, figures and energies that only you can perceive. Think of your five senses as a high-fidelity sound system. Now imagine a sixth sense that is perpetually stuck on maximum volume. Psychologists have explored phenomena like synesthesia, where senses cross. You smell colors, you hear textures. But the accounts we are diving into today describe a sensory input that is fundamentally external, interacting with a dimension that physics currently cannot map. And here is where it gets truly unsettling: the architecture of the unseen. If you believe the accounts of these lifelong experiences, the spirit world isn't just a murky cloud of confused energy. It has order. It has structure. They detail a terrifying hierarchy. At the bottom, you have what they call residual energy. Picture the most intense emotional moment ever recorded in a location, a violent argument, a moment of profound grief. Residual energy is like the spiritual equivalent of a broken record player, an echo of pure emotion stuck in a time loop. It's harmless but exhausting to witness constantly. Then you move up to intelligent entities. These are the ones that know you are watching them. They interact, they hide, sometimes they communicate. But the true terror, the accounts universally agree, lies in the fact that these entities aren't just bound to old houses. They are often described as being attracted to the person who possesses the sight, like moths to a very bright, very lonely flame. This brings us to the most critical difference between a one-off haunting and a lifelong condition: the energy drain. Imagine your phone battery constantly supplying power to an app running in the background that you can't turn off. Many born experiencers report chronic fatigue, headaches, and a profound sense of being spiritually fed upon. They are essentially living generators in a world that craves non-physical energy. Historically, cultures tried to make sense of this. In some Native American traditions, individuals with this heightened sensitivity were revered as shamans or healers, acting as bridges. In medieval Europe, they were often feared as witches or labeled as mentally unstable. The interpretation shifts, but the fundamental experience, seeing the dead, perceiving malicious intent, witnessing the fabric of reality fray, remains consistent across centuries and continents. And what about those key dates like Halloween? While the average person might feel a slight chill or enjoy the spooky atmosphere, witnesses with lifelong sight report that these dates aren't just thinner, they are absolute chaos. Historically, Halloween, or Samhain, marked the end of the harvest and the time when the boundary between worlds was believed to be most permeable. For those who already see through the veil, imagine the difference between a quiet whisper and a stadium rock concert. The energy doesn't just increase, it clashes. It's a traffic jam of spirits trying to cross, sometimes deliberately, sometimes just carried along by the temporal current. If you are already fascinated by the idea of unseen dimensions, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because we are just scratching the surface of what these individuals claim to know about the actual rules of the afterlife. Comment below. With the most intense experience you've ever had, was it residual or intelligent? Now let's talk about the defense mechanisms. If you are constantly exposed to this onslaught, how do you survive? One common account involves filtering. It's the spiritual equivalent of tuning out background noise. But unlike tuning out the sound of a refrigerator, you're trying to ignore a full-bodied shadow standing at the foot of your bed every night. Imagine trying to hold a coherent conversation while someone is screaming next to you 24/7. It takes immense mental discipline and often emotional isolation. But there's one chilling detail that almost no one who hunts ghosts for fun ever considers: the psychological toll of unverified reality. We rely on shared reality to maintain sanity. If I see a car and you see a car, we agree it's a car. But if I see a demonic figure in the corner and you see empty space, our fundamental connection to reality is broken. Try explaining to your kindergarten teacher that the man standing behind her desk has no legs, or telling your spouse that the reason you can't sleep is because the entity in the hallway is mimicking your voice. The constant invalidation, the fear of being institutionalized, often forces these experiences to construct elaborate mental walls, pretending the invisible world isn't there, even when it is screaming right in their face. And here's the final mind-bending question that arises from these first-hand accounts. If the spiritual realm has structure, does it mean it follows rules? Many report that the entities they see are not random. They occupy specific geographical locations, they are bound by certain ancient rituals, and perhaps most terrifyingly, They seem to follow a form of spiritual physics that dictates how they can interact with the physical world. Some can only move objects, others can only whisper thoughts. It suggests a complex, perhaps even interdimensional ecosystem that we are only marginally aware of. E tem mais detalhe que você não imagina. What if the sight isn't a gift or a curse but a leak? What if the reason some people are born seeing through the veil is because their personal dimensional shield is simply flawed, allowing the constant bleed-through of other realities? It's not that they gained a new sense, it's that they lost a necessary barrier. And if that barrier can be lost naturally, can it be opened intentionally? That is a topic for a much darker investigation. Stay tuned. Forget the hidden cameras, forget the government experiments, and forget the dusty old ghost hunter gear. The most terrifying secret about the spirit world isn't about where the ghosts are hiding. It's about the people who never had to look for them in the first place. I'm talking about those born with the sight. Imagine this. From the moment you understood language, your reality was layered. You're playing with your favorite toys, but you can simultaneously see the spectral outline of a figure standing behind your mother. You see the world not as solid objects, but as a vibrating energetic soup, where the living and the dead are just tuning into different frequencies. For most of us, the spiritual realm is a mystery, a fleeting shadow in the corner of our eye. But for those born with this intense, early-onset awareness, the veil isn't just thin, it's practically shredded. Now scientifically, we explain perception through our 5 senses. But let's use an analogy. Think of your normal vision as a radio tuned only to the FM band. You get crisp, clear music, the physical world. A person born with the sight. They are tuned to FM, AM, shortwave, and maybe a pirate signal from the 1920s all at once. They're processing data that our brain, by necessity, filters out. Why does our brain filter it? Because if you saw the energetic residue of every past tragedy, every lingering emotion, and every spiritual entity trying to pass through, you wouldn't be able to function. It would be sensory overload, a constant, paralyzing roar. This is why many of the earliest accounts of profound spiritual awareness start in childhood, often misinterpreted as imaginary friends or night terrors. But the people who claim to have lived this life describe something far more structured than random spooks. They claim to see the architecture of the afterlife. And here's where it gets mind-bending. According to these lifelong experiences, the spiritual realm isn't just a single, misty plane. It's tiered, almost like a massive cosmic apartment complex. At the lowest level, you have the residual energy, the emotional echoes. Think of it like a broken record playing the same tragic moment over and over. They aren't intelligent. They are just energetic imprints trapped by intense feeling. This is the stuff that makes old houses feel heavy. Then you have the wanderers, the entities who are conscious but stuck. They haven't crossed over, usually because they have unfinished business or are actively avoiding the next tier. These are the ones that interact, that move objects, that try to communicate. They are the easiest to see, especially around times of energetic flux. But the real terror, the one that truly changes your perspective, is the realization that there are tiers above, entities so old, so vast, that they don't even register humanity. They are described not as ghosts, but as geometric shapes, shifting colors, or pure overwhelming consciousness, beings that have simply always been there, maintaining the structure of reality. And while we obsess over dates like Halloween or Samhain, believing that the veil thins naturally, here is the plot twist almost no one talks about. It's not the calendar that thins the veil, it's the collective human focus. Think about it. For centuries, cultures across the globe have dedicated specific nights to remembering the dead. When billions of minds focus simultaneously on the concept of the afterlife, on remembrance, on fear, or on celebration, that massive energetic output acts like a gigantic spiritual megaphone. It doesn't create the spirits, but it gives them the raw energy, the power to interact with our physical plane more easily. The veil isn't thinning, we're just collectively turning up the volume on the cosmic radio. To live your life knowing that reality is 90% invisible, knowing that you are constantly sharing your space with these energetic structures and entities, is to live in a perpetual state of hypervigilance. It's a terrifying, solitary existence where the biggest secret isn't what's hiding in the dark, but the knowledge that you can never truly turn off the lights. If you were surprised by the idea of an energetic architecture to the afterlife, hit that like button right now. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had a moment, a shadow, a feeling, a sound that made you realize you might be catching a signal from one of those higher frequencies? The unseen world is vast, complex, and always watching, and for some it's closer than they could ever imagine. Don't go into the dark alone. Subscribe for more deep dives into the unbelievable. Until next time, keep your eyes on the shadows.